Hello friends, Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to my latest episode. In this video, we bring you some famous missing person cases from around the world, solved and unsolved. Join me. Let's walk and see. First up, well-known actor Julian Sands left his North Hollywood home on January 13, 2023 for a hike in the Mount Baldy area of the San Gabriel Mountains in Southern California. He has not been seen since. With an acting career that spans 40 years, this 65-year-old Smallsville actor is also known for his roles in horror films, such as Arachnophobia and Warlock. The charismatic father of three started his acting career in 1983, starring in Oxford Blues, The Killing Fields, and the BBC adaptation of The Box of Delights. In 1985, Sands decided to relocate permanently to the United States to further his acting career. Being a well-trained hiker, he had traversed Mount Baldy several times and knew the area well, stated a friend during an interview with The Independent. Kevin Ryan, a fellow actor, friend, and hiking partner, also said, quote, "Sands is the most experienced hiker I know, but obviously something went wrong. For me, each day that does go by puts more pressure and I guess brings a lot of doubt in. But Julian is such an advanced hiker. It is what he did. His whole life, he was climbing mountains. It was a true passion of his." End quote. Julian Sands was reported missing the evening of January 13th by his wife, Eugenia Sitkowitz, when he failed to return home. Search efforts started immediately, but were quickly hindered by weather conditions in the area. Several days of rain, snow, and icy conditions have made ground searches almost impossible. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department has been utilizing Air Patrol helicopters fitted with a RICO device, a device that can trace credit cards and other chip-containing devices, including reflective material on some outdoor gear, to help narrow the search area. The last cell phone ping from Julian's phone was received on January 15th, leading investigators to believe that the battery was dead. The department is also utilizing drones to conduct a more thorough scan of the trail he is believed to have taken. Authorities stated that the conditions were so treacherous on the 3,900-foot mountain that there have been 14 rescues in the last 2 weeks. They're advising hikers to stay off the mountain due to avalanches, icy, snow-packed areas, and plummeting temperatures. On January 18th, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department recovered Julian Sands' car in a parking area close to the Mount Baldy trailhead. On the 19th, his 3 children joined the search efforts for their father. As of February 13th, officials working closely with search and rescue operators haven't given up hope of finding the missing actor. Officials had given an update on February 12th stating, quote, "The search and outcome for Julian Sands may not be what we like. We are still conducting searches as weather and conditions allow. Right now, those are just by air because of the icy conditions and such on the mountain. But unfortunately, nothing new has developed." End quote. Mara Rodriguez, San Bernardino County Sheriff's spokesperson, said, quote, "We haven't transitioned into recovery at this point. It's still a search and rescue mission. We don't have any kind of set date for that, but it's something that we're keeping in mind." End quote. Now, the trail where Julian Sands went missing has a sordid history, aside from this missing actor. In August 2019, 31-year-old Amanda Kathleen Custer was reported missing after a domestic dispute with her boyfriend, 28-year-old Robert Anthony Camus. Police responded to calls for help when Custer entered a neighboring apartment occupied by an older man that was also battered in the initial incident. Camus chased Custer while hurling violent threats when the two entered the unnamed man's apartment. It was at that point police were called and Camus was arrested. He was later charged with assault using force, injuring his girlfriend, and first-degree burglary with a person present. However, Camus quickly bonded out and allegedly kidnapped Custer. Witnesses told police they saw him load Custer's lifeless body into his car, and he left towards Mount Baldy. Later, a video was recovered of Camus singing a karaoke song about, quote, "burying his girlfriend in the dirt," end quote. Now, the authorities were able to access an electronic monitoring device the suspect was wearing at the time to track his movements. The maps show him in the Mount Baldy/Little Creek area. After a 5-hour standoff with police, Camus was arrested again and charged with first-degree murder. The details of the case are as follows. Police are asking for the public's help locating the body of Amanda Kathleen Custer, and also if anyone saw the suspect or his gray 2017 Prius in the Mount Baldy, Little Creek area on July 29, 2019, please contact authorities. Rick Custer, Amanda's father, joined the police in asking for help locating his daughter's remains. He's quoted as saying, "This is basically a plea to anybody out there, especially on July 29, 2019, that was hunting, fishing, or mountain biking that may have seen anything out of the ordinary. It may not have seemed important at that time, but it does now. I've gone up there, Little Creek, a couple times with no results. Some other family members have been up there with no results. We just want to bring Amanda home." Amanda Kathleen Custer was the mother of an 8-year-old son at the time she disappeared. Robert Anthony Camus has pleaded not guilty and is awaiting trial. Anyone with any information regarding the Amanda Kathleen Custer or Julian Sands disappearance is asked to contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department at 909-387-8313. Now, the Mount Baldy area has seen some severe winter weather for the 2022-2023 season. At least 2 other hikers have died on the mountain, and several other hikers have been airlifted from the trails to the summit. The conditions are considered so dangerous that authorities have warned hikers several times to avoid the mountain until weather conditions improve. Hikes along the Mount Baldy area can be demanding, even for experienced hikers, authorities are quoted as saying. They also said the unusually wet winter has brought massive rainfall to the ordinarily mild, dry climate. Next up, we have the strange case of 32-year-old YouTube survivalist and vlogger Finn Craney. On March 25, 2022, Finn was dropped off near Loch Naver at 2:15 p.m. The outdoorsman and survivalist had been showing viewers his abilities to survive in makeshift shelters when temperatures plummeted to sub-zero numbers. Craney started his YouTube channel in 2021 under the handle Wildcat Bushcraft, showcasing videos on the beauty of the Scottish Highlands, home to channel friend Ted Branston. By March of 2022, the father of one was becoming popular in the outdoor survivalist community, with one subscriber leaving the comment, quote, "Excellent first installment. The music sets the mood perfectly. And that landscape. Your energy is so incredible. Makes the harsh winter and altitude look so easy and enjoyable. Really looking forward to seeing how you thrive in your next adventure." End quote. Finn was last seen by a family member on March 25, 2022, setting out for his next adventure. He had also left his wife Lucy a voicemail, telling her he loved her and promised to be home by the 27th to help her deliver Mother's Day flowers to her customers. Lucy Craney had just opened her own business and was looking forward to her first holiday working with her husband. Now, Mother's Day in Scotland was on March 27th that year. Lucy sent a few more text messages on the 25th, and noticed later that day they hadn't been read. Considering that his phone may have died, she didn't think much of it. The next day was Mother's Day, and Finn was set to return home by 6 p.m. However, when that time came and went, Lucy thought he might be taking longer to film. She went on and finished her deliveries by herself. But the next day, March 28, 2022, Lucy Craney knew something was wrong when she woke up and her husband was still not home. She contacted the local school where Craney taught children bushcraft to ask if he had come to work. "No," was their response. Now more panicked than ever, Lucy Craney contacted the police and reported her husband missing. It had now been 3 days since anyone had contact with him. An extensive search was launched immediately in the Sutherland area. The Coast Guard, ground and air units, mountain search and rescue, and several police agencies joined in the search to no avail. The investigation lasted 4 weeks with no sign of Finn ever found. He was known to have a strong relationship with his family, as well as strong ties to his community. Other possible avenues of his disappearance were explored over the months since he was last seen, and according to authorities, quote, "There was no evidence that Finn would go missing intentionally, and there were no signs of a mental health crisis." End quote. Lucy and Finn had just married in 2021, but had been together for 9 years. His business was doing very well and gaining momentum. Finn Craney was last seen wearing a knee-length brown leather jacket with a black t-shirt, dark trousers, brown waterproof boots, and a green rucksack. The family assumes that he also carried several cameras to film the YouTube video he's working on. He's described as standing 5 foot 11 inches tall with a slim build, long, light brown hair, freckles, and a full beard. Lucy believes in her heart that Finn will be found. She says, quote, People don't just vanish off the face of the earth. End quote. She also adds that their daughter, who's now 5 years old, asks every night about her father at bedtime. If you have any information on the disappearance of Finn Creaney, please get in touch with Police Scotland online via the contact form. Next up, the mysterious case of Kenny Veach. On November 22, 2014, 47-year-old YouTube personality and outdoor enthusiast Kenny Veach set out to explore a particular cave he had found on another episode of his blog. A long-distance desert hiker that went by the handle Snakebite McGee shared his adventures in the desert areas of the southwestern United States with his followers. Veach also explored caves during his outings, making sure to enter each one he found and sharing his findings interactively with his viewers. It was on one of these expeditions that he found what he referred to as the M Cave in the Sheep Mountain area. He explained that his body seemed to vibrate as he entered the cave on that October day. Now, he didn't go all the way into M Cave then, vowing to return to explore it further on another trip. A month later, sure enough, Veach returned to the Nevada desert, where he vlogged the beginning of his exploration of the area, telling his viewers he would try to relocate M Cave. This, however, is where things took a turn for the worse. Viewers were encouraging him to find the cave and filming himself entering it. During the 10-hour stream, Veach talked about the cave, ate pine nuts, and shared various wildlife scenes captured during the trek. The first time he entered M Cave, Veach explained the experience. When commenting to viewers on the documentary, Son of an Area 51 Technician, being discussed in the chat while the live stream was going on, before returning to relocate M Cave. This is what Veach said happened. Quote, "That ain't nothing. I'm a long-distance hiker. One time during my hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body begins to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I got very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things to ever happen to me." End quote. Now, as I said, Veach was an experienced hiker and took precautions when venturing out alone, which he did most of the time. Now, there were rare occasions when his girlfriend would go with him on these adventures. However, Veach prided himself on going it alone and without a GPS or a compass, saying to his viewers, quote, "I've been doing this sort of thing for over 20 years. I hike mountaintop over mountaintop and sleep on peaks under the stars. Sometimes I have to scale giant cliffs to get myself out of a jam, but I always make it back." End quote. Sadly, this time, Kenny Veach wouldn't make it back. After the 10-hour live stream was over, Veach was never heard from again. What was supposed to be a short, overnight trip turned out to be a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. 2 days after Veach was supposed to return home, his girlfriend reported him missing. Police were able to trace Veach's cell phone to the location where he had filmed his October search for M Cave. The phone was located on the ground near a mine shaft. Search and rescue teams sent a video camera down into the abandoned mine shaft, but they could not locate Veach. Now, opinions about the fate of Kenny Veach are widely speculated and range all the way from his disappearance being a hoax to being abducted by aliens or entities working for Area 51. There are several articles about the disappearance of Kenny Veach which debunk the hoax theories in the minds of most people. Some people pointed out the link between Sheep Mountain and the location of the infamous Area 51, which was a short distance north of where Veach was last known to be searching for M Cave. Many of his subscribers have shared their opinions about his strange disappearance close to America's alien airport. The last video Veach recorded looking for M Cave is up on his channel and currently has over 2 million views. Las Vegas police continue to take tips about the Kenny Veach case. If anyone has any information about this missing hiker, you're asked to contact the LVPD at 702-821-3111 and reference Kenny Veach. Next, on April 1st, 2006, 27-year-old Ohio State second-year medical student Brian Schaefer accompanied his friends to a local student hangout in the Columbus, Ohio Beltway district called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Everyone had a few drinks and was enjoying each other's company. Schaefer and his girlfriend were going to leave the following Monday morning for spring break to Miami, Florida. so they were getting in every last minute with their family and friends they could before departing. Extremely intelligent, well-adjusted, and athletic, Schaefer had his foreseeable future mapped out, following in his late mother's footsteps of working in the medical profession as a doctor. Just 1 year earlier, the honor student had lost his inspirational mother to cancer. The last Christmas gift from her to him was a pair of plane tickets bound for Miami for him and his girlfriend, Alexis Wagner. The group of friends had been to several bars that night, planning to return to the Ugly Tuna Saloon to hear a band that was playing later. Video surveillance shows Schaefer re-entering the Ugly Tuna with friends at around 1:15 a.m. Then, at 1:55 a.m., another camera picked up two women talking to Schaefer just outside the upstairs portion of the bar. The conversation seems cordial, friendly. Schaefer exchanged phone numbers with one of them, and then everyone parted ways. Schaefer returned to the bar area, and this was the last time he would be seen on video. At 2:05 a.m., Alexis Wagner tried to call her boyfriend, but the call went to voicemail. On Saturday, she would try for most of the day to get in touch with Schaefer, but again, the calls went straight to voicemail. It wasn't until Sunday that she went to his apartment to check on him because no one had heard anything since early Saturday morning. The apartment was in order, but no sign of Brian. Wagner then decided to alert Randy Schaefer, Brian's father, who in turn alerted the authorities. On Monday, April 4, 2006, Brian Schaefer was officially reported as missing. At his apartment, his car was parked outside, and his eyeglasses and other personal effects were inside, which his friends and family believe he wouldn't have voluntarily left without. A massive search commenced, with authorities stating it was the most extensive search in the history of Columbus, Ohio. Sewers, dumpsters, the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and other places were searched for the 6'2", 165-pound student. Police searched through hundreds of hours of video surveillance and found the aforementioned clips that showed Brian entering the bar and also talking to the two women. Schaefer was never seen leaving the Ugly Tuna Saloon, however. Police also questioned several people that remembered seeing the missing man that night, but no one recalled seeing him leave either. Cadaver dogs joined the search by the middle of the week and were taken to a nearby construction site as well as the walls at the bar where he was last seen. There was no indication that he was ever in any of the other areas searched. Authorities stated, quote, "More cameras are in that area than anywhere else in the city. It's like he vanished into thin air," end quote. As time passed and there was no movement in the case, it was surmised that Brian Schaefer might have simply walked away from his life. A tuition check, written on March 1, 2006, was never turned over to the university for the next semester. The over $4,000 was unaccounted for, making some believe Schaefer had indeed used it to start a new life. Another clue backing this theory was a post on his MySpace page stating, quote, "I'm a medical student for the time being, not my long-term plan," end quote. This added to his inexplicable disappearance and started to draw a picture that maybe Brian Schaefer wanted to start his life anew somewhere else and doing something else. As weeks turned into months, tips from the public dwindled. However, his father, Randy Schaefer, never lost hope of finding his son. Missing person flyers with Brian's picture and information could be seen throughout the city and even in neighboring towns and states. A private detective was hired, and several other people were questioned about their possible knowledge of the missing student. One of those people was a former friend and classmate named Clint Florence, whom authorities took a particular interest in after learning that he and Schaefer had a verbal altercation earlier the night Schaefer disappeared. Authorities also questioned Clint Florence about the disagreement the two had. If all the accounts that he gave are accurate, Schaefer was seen after the altercation with his friend, stating he was going to talk to the house band. A grand jury was convened, where Clint Florence, Randy Schaefer, and Alexis Wagner were all summoned to appear to answer questions. Everyone went, except for Florence, who had by this time retained a lawyer and invoked his Fifth Amendment right. Clint Florence was never named a suspect nor person of interest outside these grand jury proceedings. The next occurrence in the case was in May 2006 when Brian Schaefer's apartment was burglarized. Police never released what, if anything, was taken from the apartment. This turn of events raised eyebrows and suspicions that someone either left something at the apartment that they didn't want the police to find or it was a coincidental break-in that had nothing to do with the missing student. Leads into the missing man's case continued to dwindle over the summer months, but in early September 2006, Alexis Wagner contacted Columbus police with a new tip. She'd been calling Schaefer's phone every night since his disappearance, and it had gone straight to voicemail every time, except for the night before she contacted the authorities. That night, when she dialed the number, it rang. No one answered, but the fact that it did indeed ring was a hopeful new clue. Police traced the phone to an area in Ohio called Hilliard, which is 15 miles from the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Police contacted the cell phone provider, who told them it was probably a glitch in the system that caused the phone to seem as though it was ringing, when in reality it was probably an overworked tower that caused the phone to do this. Understandably, this was a huge letdown to those involved in the case. It had been such a promising lead after all. A few smaller leads trickled in over the next 2 years, but nothing led to any answers. On September 14, 2008, tragedy would once again strike the family when Hurricane Ike hit Texas with strong winds, massive amounts of rain, and high water surges. Randy Schaefer decided to ride out the storm at his home in Houston, Texas. While the man was surveying the damage to his home and property, a gust of wind knocked a large tree branch from a tree, hitting the family patriarch. Sadly, he would pass away from his injuries, never knowing what happened to his son. There was a eulogy posted online in remembrance of Randy Schaefer, with a place where people could leave comments. One of the comments strangely read, quote, "I miss you, Dad. Love, Brian." End quote. The area in which the person was said to be at the time the post was made was the U.S. Virgin Islands. This led people to believe Brian was actually alive and possibly living in another part of the world. Police started an immediate investigation to trace where the comment had been sent from. In a statement updating the case, authorities told the public that the comment had originated from a public library in the Franklin County, Ohio area. This was just 5 miles from the Ugly Tuna Bar, where Schaefer was last seen. Police tried to track down who had used the computer, but there were no records of who had logged on. Likewise, they checked the surveillance camera footage for the day the message was left, but there was no one fitting Brian Schaefer's description seen coming in or leaving the library that day. This event caused the public perception of the case to change once more. Most people now thought Brian had met with foul play and that the message was a red herring or a hoax. To this day, speculation as to what really happened to Brian Schaefer, a young, promising medical student with that whole life in front of him, is still ongoing. People on social media are divided as to their opinion of what happened to him. Some believe the loss of his mother was simply too much, and after her death, he chose to walk away from his planned life and is living on a beach somewhere. Others think he could have fallen into a dumpster at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, and before those could be searched by police, they were picked up and emptied. The contract for those dumpsters was to a place in Tennessee, and police weren't notified in time to search them before the contents were taken away the Monday following his disappearance. There are also people who believe Brian Schaefer was murdered and was somehow taken out of the building without being seen. Police released the following statement, quote, "The case is open and ongoing. We still receive tips from time to time and follow up on them as appropriate." End quote. What was once a beautiful family of 4 is now just one. Brian Schaefer's brother, Derek Schaefer, had this to say about his brother's disappearance, quote, "Every day I think about my brother and wish that someone would come forward with answers. I will always stay hopeful for a miracle that he will be found alive and well, but as time passes, that hope fades. If anyone knows anything, please come forward and end this daily agony for me and my family." End quote. On April 8, 2013, Brian Schaefer was declared legally dead by the Ohio courts. If you have any information on the disappearance of Brian Schaefer, please contact the Columbus City Police Department at 614-645-8477, or you can contact the Ohio Crime Stoppers tip line at 877-645-8477. There are several age progression pictures that have been rendered online of what Brian may look like as he aged. There's a reward for information leading to the recovery of Brian Schaefer. The Ugly Tuna Saloona closed its doors on Monday, April 30, 2018, and moved to a different location. It's now known as the Ugly Tuna Saloona 2. And finally, the Death Valley Germans. On July 8, 1996, 4 German tourists rented a minivan in Los Angeles, California, and set out on an American tour of the Southwest area. 34-year-old Egbert Remkes, his son, 11-year-old George Weber, 28-year-old Cornelia Connie Meyer, and her son, 4-year-old Max Meyer, all from Dresden, Germany, flew into Seattle, Washington on July 8, 1996, for their American vacation. They were supposed to return to Germany on July 27, 1996. Having landed in Los Angeles on the 8th, they picked up a rented green Plymouth Voyager minivan and set out for San Clemente, California. From there, the four tourists headed to Las Vegas and stayed at the Treasure Island Hotel. They checked out of the TI on July 22nd and made plans to see Death Valley before continuing to their final destination of Yosemite National Park. The day they left Las Vegas, the temperature outside in Death Valley was 124 degrees Fahrenheit, temperatures that they certainly weren't used to. Tragically, they would never make it to Yosemite. On July 23rd, Connie Meyer signed the guest book for the Warm Spring mine site saying, quote, "We're going over the pass," end quote. It had the signatures of Connie, Egbert, George, and Max. This was the last communication of any kind from the family. The area they were trying to reach was the rugged, desolate mining sites of Anvil Canyon, Mingle Pass, Butte Valley, and the Panamint Mountain Range. What they didn't know was that these areas are only accessible by four-wheel drive. On October 21, 1996, Death Valley National Park Ranger Dave Brenner was flying over the park on aerial surveillance patrol looking for manufacturing labs of illegal substances. As he patrolled the Anvil Canyon area, in the distance, a glint of something caught his eye. A vehicle was stuck in an area of the park that at the time was closed off under the Desert Protection Act established to protect the fragile flora. Brenner found a place to land the helicopter and inspected the abandoned vehicle and could tell right away that it was recently abandoned. The van had two flat tires and was buried up to its axles in sand. He could also tell right away that it had been driven for quite a distance on the flat tires from the drag marks behind it. Inside, he could see luggage, discarded fast food wrappers, and other items that led him to believe he should further investigate how the van ended up where it was. Brenner ran the plate and learned that this particular vehicle was reported stolen by Dollar Car Rentals on September 10, 1996. At that time, it was customary for car rental agencies to wait a full 30 days before reporting a rental as stolen. He was able to obtain the driver's name listed on the rental agreement and continued to further investigate the bizarre findings set before him. He began contacting airlines to check if there was anyone with the name Cornelia Meyer listed on any flight manifest. Brenner learned that there was indeed a passenger by that name who was supposed to return to Germany on July 27, 2006, with 3 other passengers, a flight which they never made. Brenner was also able to obtain banking information from items found in the van. A man's wallet containing a bank card was used to trace where it had been used and what dates it had been used before. This was when he was able to put the tourist in Las Vegas. Inside the van, he also found 2 booklets for Death Valley Park Museum written in the German language. This connected the last piece of the puzzle he needed to put together the circumstances that led the van to be in the spot where he found it. After marking the van's location on his GPS, he left the area to get help. Brenner returned on October 22nd with Death Valley National Park investigator Eric Inman. Inman photographed the area and initiated a search for the missing German tourists. The area where the van was stuck is very isolated, remote, and one of the hottest places on Earth. In fact, back in 1913, the United States Weather Bureau recorded a record-high temperature of 134 degrees Fahrenheit at Furnace Creek in Death Valley. That record still stands as the highest ambient air temperature recorded on the Earth's surface. Inman knew if the tourists were out in the desert, they didn't have long to find them. The official search for the missing German tourists began later that day. 2 detectives from the Inyo Sheriff's Office joined the search and rescue mission, as well as the investigation. The men drove to the site to observe and document where the van was so they could have it removed. Several search and rescue teams were brought in, and several mounted patrol officers joined the team. They focused on the Anvil Pass area, thinking that because the temperatures were so high, the 4 missing people couldn't have made it very far from the van. As the search expanded, more teams and volunteers joined the effort. The search area expanded to cover several hundred miles. Volunteers took to the sky with helicopters, while others searched on foot. The search lasted 5 days, with high hopes the missing foursome would be found. High winds hampered efforts to search by air any further, and the search and rescue team members were starting to drop off as they were needed in other missions. Years would pass with no news on the missing German tourist. People knew the story. It was as much a part of the desert as the sand, which, the investigators were sure, held the missing captives somewhere within its boundaries. But the desert, as they say, doesn't like to give up its secrets, and hides them very well sometimes. In 2009, Tom Mayhood read the case history and took to Death Valley in search of the missing people. And on November 9, 2009, Cornelia Connie Myers' remains were found. Several days later, those of Egbert Remkes were also recovered. The children are still considered missing, although there were several fragments of bones found, but not enough for a DNA comparison. Authorities use this case as a cautionary tale to anyone that may want to brave the Wild West deserts of the southwest United States. In the summer months, it gets extremely hot in Death Valley, hence the name. The best time to go explore the area is late fall or early spring. Be sure and take plenty of provisions, a spare tire, shovel, food, water, GPS system, and maps if needed, because GPS coordinates can be misleading in the desert due to iron deposits. And always tell someone where you're going and when to expect you back. Well, friends, there you have it. What do you think of these famous missing person cases, both solved but mostly unsolved? I welcome your comments, but please remember to be friendly and respectful to one another. Thank you for listening to this video, and until we meet again, be good to yourselves and one another. As for me, as always, I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll see you a little further down the trail. And again, as always, tell your animals I said hi and I missed them.